In this field-based activity, too, today's students, the digital natives, are accustomed to cell phones, computers, and the internet, which makes them different than other generations, and they need to have different skills for tomorrow. I hope to shed some insight on what a teacher can do to prepare to acquire the skills and the need for the future employment of these students in the global world. They become more adept to also civil discourse in dealing with disputes rather than being polarized. Well, let's go over first off what are some of the skills that are required of these millennials. They need to exercise some flexibility, and as instructors, can begin this by looking at the framework that's designed for these skills. They vary slightly from different points of views, but the framework themselves do hit and agree on 4 critical areas. Those are collaboration and teamwork, creativity and imagination, critical thinking, and my favorite, problem solving. Let's begin though and just briefly discuss what does collaboration and teamwork mean in these skills for the millennials. As I mentioned earlier, they definitely need to exercise flexibility. Uh, they are all going to have a common goal. So as they work in their teams, okay, not just a group, but teams, they compromise is probably one of the things that they're going to need to do, and it's very necessary that they know how to compromise with one another. They're going to have a shared responsibility in this common collaborative work, and the value of their individual contribution. Each team member is of value, and so they have to reflect each opinion in this reflective goal. But the students then will need a guide, which is me or the teacher, to demonstrate the ability how to work together effectively. Most important, we must respect. Everybody needs to respect this diverse culture and each team member. Once they connect and can communicate, these are the major keys in working towards teamwork and collaboration. Moving on to creativity and the imagination. These are unique ways of communicating. One of my favorites is brainstorming. This allows the student to open and demonstrate each individual's originality. Parameters by the real world will definitely limit what the students can actually employ or put to use. So we kind of reel those in, these maybe a bit off the wall ideas, and we adopt new ideas in kind of a cyclical process of small successes, small failures, or mistakes. They don't even have to be called failures. So as the group, they can redefine, evaluate them, and continuously improve those efforts. Moving on, critical thinking. Now, these aid students in various types of reasoning, deductive, inducive, but students are going to need to interpret the information they've collected. Once they collect their data, they now need to reflect on it, draw conclusions, and using this evidence, reflect on this experience. They're going to have some complex ideas. And as they work through this interaction, they can realize, even if their conclusion is incorrect, they can collect this information based on this evidence and then promote their conclusion. My favorite, as I mentioned earlier, is problem solving. Problem solving takes a different kind of approach. You take a non-familiar problem and innovatively you discover some ways to put it all together and determine what the solution or what a best result could be to come to the means. All right, let's start with students are encouraged to identify what they know. That's the first question. What do I know? Then they need to ask and clarify the various points of view. What exactly am I looking for? Okay, what do I have? What am I looking for? This leads to better solutions once they identify what they are looking for. But the information that we have that bridges these two pieces together, here's what I know, here's what I'm looking for, what information do I have that brings it all together? This is just the beginning of the century skills, the 21st century skills that students are going to need to survive in this global economy and world. I'd like to introduce Rachel.
Hi.
She is a middle school and secondary Spanish teacher in the cyber world. And we're talking about the field-based activities where we talk about students are digital natives today. They're accustomed to their cell phones, computers, the internet, which makes them much different than other generations. And as you teach, what are these different skills for tomorrow's world that you're helping your students with?
Well, I think the fact that they can still choose what they want to do and still remain technologically savvy. I think before I went into teaching in the cyber world, the mentality was we have to remove the technology, we have to get the student focused on what's happening in the classroom. I think that just the opposite is true. You have to allow them to use their devices, you have to kind of meet them at their level, or else the respect, the level of appreciation that they'll have for the subject matter is going to be completely out the window. You're not going to meet them on
So
their
you're
paths.
like connecting then with the
Exactly.
students.
So
Yeah.
I think that teaching in a cyber world is a really advantageous way to teach students nowadays because although it's kind of new and scary in
Yeah.
some ways, it
Yeah.
was for me too when I first started doing it. You learn the technology as they're learning it, and so it's not so scary because you're on the same level with them. Um, this,
Now, when you're teaching Spanish,
yes.
so how do you feel that will transcend or help them implement in this new global economy and global world?
Well, it's funny that so many people feel that English has to be taught. It has to be English if you want to get along in the world, especially if you're dealing with people in the United States and their economy. You have to speak English. To a degree, there's some truth to that. However, I think that an appreciation for the cultures, including languages, for different groups of people that you'll meet, it's very important to not only know your native language well, but also to know something about somebody else's language. Because just like we were talking about, students appreciating you knowing more about their nativity, their native tongue and technology, you'll appreciate it more. Or I'm sorry, the students will appreciate other aspects of their education better by knowing
About the culture, you're saying, like
about
other.
the cultures of
Yeah.
other people they'll be dealing with. I think it was like Barack Obama had said recently that his mission statement to students is that you have to prepare them for a global economy and a business-minded economy, and part of that is knowing the languages. I know that right now there's a huge demand for not just Spanish but Arabic languages, Chinese languages, and so just saying that you can get along knowing English at this age as a student, it's going to be much more difficult to meet people on their level.
Okay. So you're not even saying bilingual, you're saying trilingual.
Trilingual, or even I think the traditional mentality in the United States is to keep it at a French, Spanish, maybe some Italian or German. Now it's languages that are being taught in elementary levels are Chinese, Japanese, other Eastern Asian languages, not just Spanish. Spanish is pertinent to the United States, but especially if you're dealing with a global economy, then it's important to know Eastern Asian languages in particular.
Well, when you discussed just now about the diverse cultures and understanding, there's, as they say in the field-based activity, the civil discourse in dealing with disputes rather than having the students polarize. So the students pulling to like all Asian students hanging out together and Are you experiencing that in the cyber world at all?
You know, it's interesting in the cyber world as a cyber student because each student is in their own comfort zone. There's different reasons for that, and no student has to be aware of another student's personal situation. If somebody was bullied in a previous school, if somebody had trouble with legal issues, if somebody is going through a teen pregnancy, you're not going to know that, and their classmates aren't going to know that either, which kind of cuts down a lot on behavioral issues and honestly on issues of civil, or how did you phrase that?
They call it civil discourse in
Civil
dealing
discourse.
with yeah. So
Yeah, I notice quite a bit of difference in the amount of behavioral issues and clickiness, and students are very supportive of each other, and they have no idea even what the student looks like who they're talking to, and so that exterior facade is just completely gone.
so you have no issues with collaborative in the cyber world.
Well, when it comes to issues of like we were talking, like cliquishness and people grouping off and not wanting to converse with other students, it's more to deal with a student disengaging completely from the learning environment as opposed to disengaging with other students.
How long have you been in the cyber environment?
So I'm about 3.5 years right now, and I've done this type of work in different environments myself. I've done it in an office atmosphere. I've done it at my personal home. So that's another great thing is that you can take your education with you. It takes down the things that are bothering you as an instructor. You don't have to. They don't have to know if you're having a hard day. They don't have to know if maybe you didn't brush your hair. If you're not on the camera just for one day, you know, they're not going to judge you as much either. And so they can appreciate the message as opposed to the package.
I got you. The last was you were in classroom situations,
Oh, yeah,
so
sure.
you were in. So you have definitely experienced the polarization of students and the transition from traditional to.
I've been in, probably a little bit longer in traditional classrooms before I got into cyber education, but I just fell in love with it. I don't want to go back just because I appreciate the kinds of students that you can help. A lot of times the students that need the most help are ones that go towards a cyber education because they've had struggles or not as much success in a traditional environment.
Is there anything else you'd like to add to this? I feel like I've kind of prompted you through it. Is there anything you want to add? Talking about like the standards, do you feel the students have excelled or?
It's so that actually kind of goes into the corporate aspect, and it goes into the recruiting aspect of each school. Some schools recruit from only a particular population. Other schools say, come one, come all, we'll teach you. So where you go kind of depends on that, but I'm going to say that students will choose, their families will choose what suits them best. Like they're not going to go in search of a school that won't accept them. They will find a school that will accept them. I think it's a great alternative to the district that they're in. Like if they have trouble in the district that they're in, they have lots of options. They don't have to go to school A. They can choose from, especially in Pennsylvania. There are that's where I teach. There are probably 15 to 20 cyber schools. That's the most of any state in the country. So I feel very lucky, very fortunate to be able to teach in this state. And I hope that other states will follow the path of incorporating more cyber schools instead of less.
No, I agree. I'm very into the online education because I am in Franciscan's
there you go.
online program.
If I continue my education, then I probably will try to go into online classes myself because I've seen how well other students can do in that environment. I'd love to try it myself.
Well, I really appreciate this time with you. Thank you very much. But we will be talking some more on field-based activities.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Anytime.
In conclusion, we're going to discuss briefly the 3 teaching goals for instructing millennials. Excuse me. I like project-based learning. It brings each student into a collaborative work where they each have their own unique idea to solve a problem. They're each bringing something to the table, something that is unique. And then as this whole project comes together, they're able to evaluate the outcome. And this is pretty much a very complex system. So I believe there is a PLB in West Virginia that's on CNN where they discuss a parking lot. There was an accident in the high school parking lot. So the teacher had the students design a better parking lot situation so this accident prone area would no longer be problematic. So I do like PLBs, project based learning. Adjusting mindsets. This is another teaching goal where you want to administer perhaps like a case study where the students have to work together. Now this critical thinking stage where each student gives their contribution in working towards a goal, this will dissolve that polarization amongst the students, and they're able to engage, work together, and learn how to have civil discourse. And then the third teaching strategy that I'd like to work on would be number one, strengthening my own technical skills. Maybe do some global work towards blogging, but whatever forms of digital media. But then have the students instruct me, teach the teacher how to lift parameters and perhaps explore outside of the teacher's comfort zone inside this technological environment that they've grown up in. So those are my three strategies where diversity can be embraced, where students don't have to be polarized, but they can work together, and encourage critical thinking in coming to a solution of a complex real life problem. Thank you for watching. Bye now.